All right, gesture 3. So this is one of my favorite ones because it shows you your funky poses and kind of in real life, if you were, say, drawing a bunch of people in a room, not everyone is going to be standing like that girl that we saw in the first photo. No one really stands like this. It's awkward. So as we go through these gestures, my goal is to help you guys draw people more naturally. So if you see someone that's kind of posed and you're wanting to draw them but you're not sure how, gesture drawing is a great place to start. So this guy that looks like he's about to drop the hottest album of 2020, 2021, he would be a great person to do a gesture drawing on. A quick kind of plotting of these points to get a layout for what this dude's actually doing. So it's the same thing that we've been doing. We're going to start with the head. We're going to go down the weight-bearing leg. In this photo, one way to think of it is if you were in this kind of position and you lifted that leg, would you fall or not? So here, if he lifts this leg, he's going to fall. If he lifts this one, he's probably going to have a hard time balancing, but he would be okay. That tells me that this leg is his weight-bearing leg. So I'm going to draw down his weight-bearing leg, and this one is going to look really, really funny at first because his leg is kind of coming at us here. When we're drawing it, it's going to look like he has a really short, stubby leg, but know that as we go through and beef it up, it's going to look significantly less awkward. So I'm going to I have his head, I'm going to come down and I'm going to draw his weight-bearing leg, and it kind of comes at us, so essentially it doesn't really move much, and it's going to look just like that. So you could even potentially do a straight line for this one. Because he is so hunched over, we know that that knee is somewhere in here, but it really is kind of folded in on itself. The next thing we're going to do is plot his hips. He has one that's going to be kind of behind this arm here, and his other one is going to be right here, right before his suit ends. So keep in mind that he's kind of, because he's facing us, his hips are kind of wide from the angle that we're viewing. So we have one here, and because his other leg is opening up a little bit and kind of going out to the side, he's going to have some wider hips than probably some of the other ones we've drawn. So we have those hips. You can plot the shoulders. His left shoulder here is higher up than his right shoulder is. If I drew a straight line, you can see that this left shoulder is going to be higher up than that right shoulder. So I'm going to add that in my drawing. It actually goes higher up than his face. So on our head, his shoulder, it's going to look a little silly at first. His shoulder is going to be more like this. If you're using Vine charcoal, you can kind of erase that little spot in the middle so it doesn't drive you crazy. And then you can start to plot some of the arms and the knees and start to kind of beef this guy up a little bit. So from his shoulder, I'm going to add his elbow, which is right about there. And this is kind of coming in at a slight angle. And then his arm crosses the middle of his body. So I'm paying attention to kind of where his arm stops. It's going to go down a little bit farther than this foot. Let's see. So I kind of note that his hand is coming forward. It kind of goes back to this little elbowy area here and up to his arm. Do we all see that? On his other arm, I'm going to go ahead and add his leg here, just so we can see it and kind of have that before we draw this arm that's resting on top of it. So we have his hip. It comes out to his knee, and it kind of comes in at this angle for his foot, and he has a shoe on. But so we have knee. He has like a long leg here because that's the part that's kind of facing us in this camera angle, and then it kind of tapers down for his calf. So boom, and don't forget, it's gonna look really awkward at first because we still have to come back and beef him up. One thing that I note is I think I've angled his leg here a little bit too much. I'm gonna bring this down just a little bit. So I'm using my Vine charcoal to erase. I'm gonna bring it down just a smidge. So then this arm, it rests on top of this knee. His elbow's actually right about here, His arm's going over, and his hand is kind of draped over that away. So we see that this guy's kind of starting to take a very awkward shape. You can come back and add things like his knee. It's ultimately going to come back to this leg. You could start to kind of shape up his arm and where that's going to be if you're to the point where we can start beefing things up a little bit. I like to look at this negative space here. I use that a lot for reference when I'm drawing, so I'll try to look at like that negative space to kind of help me figure out how wide this area is supposed to be. And boom, we have our guy kind of starting to take shape here. So you can come back and start to kind of beef things up. Don't be adding any cute little details. Don't like add his watch in yet, or his sunglasses. I would just stick to the basics. Also, once you feel like you've got kind of a good foundation of where this guy would be posed, don't forget to come back and check some of your points. Don't be scared to rearrange things. Erasing is a good thing, especially with one that's as complicated as this. But this pose, the beautiful thing about it is it's easy to kind of cross-check these points. So I know that this hand should be higher up than this hand is. The very bottom of these fingertips should be higher up than this wrist. So on mine, I want to make sure that I've done that. And it looks like I might have even made it too high up. So maybe this hand needs to come down a smidgen. I know that my fingertips here are the lowest thing on my drawing. So that's something I could check in my drawing. His left shoe is going to be a little bit lower on the page than his right shoe, which it is. His fingertips might come down just a smidgen more than I have them drawn here. But those are all points to kind of start checking. See that his shoulder is the farthest thing to the right, and then his knee comes out like right about his elbow, and his hand is in between those two. His hand should actually come a little bit farther than the left side of his face. But you can see as we start to kind of move these things around, it's going to get more accurate and more right, so that when we're ready to start our contour drawing of him, we can come in and draw those other little features like his sunglasses, his tie, his watch, and know that they're in the right spot on our drawing. Awesome, awesome. Thank you, kiddos.